Hi and welcome to Tabletop Gaming, the home of cool things like this. This is a monthly magazine available in print and digital where we talk about all things board games, card games, war games and everything in between. You should definitely go check that out. I'll pop a link in the description. Today I wanted to take a look at the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay starter set and GM screen, and I'll explain why as we go. So many of you will be familiar with Warhammer because it's kind of hard not to be. The shops are in most towns, you may know people that play Warhammer. But generally you think Warhammer and you think of the sort of figures and the painting style of things. Warhammer also does role-playing games and has done for a very long time. It's one of those that is not always as spoken of as much as the others, and I've come to realise is quite the surprise that it isn't. Now, in a strange twist of fate, I recently was able to have a look at the Enemy Within campaign, which is a campaign that happened in the late 80s, I think, don't quote me on that, and was so incredibly popular that they brought it back. In the same way, for me, I understand D&D terms, Spelljammer was popular in 2E, so we're bringing it back for 5E. That was the logic when they did so. And I had a read through of the books and the campaign and the notes, and you know what? I loved it. And I am baffled by this. And that's certainly not because I thought it would be bad, but because I found personally Warhammer to be quite impenetrable. When I go into the shops, the reactions I get is normally quite standoffish and I struggle to get any proper advice. That's also been the same at shows. So I've never been able to go from, I don't know anything about Warhammer, will you teach me, to a status of feeling comfortable that someone will or wants to. That may just be a sort of isolated set of experiences, maybe based on the area I'm in or something along those lines. But that's how I've always come away feeling with Warhammer, is that there's a disconnect between me being able to get to it. Reading through the campaign, I was really surprised to find how accessible it is, how fun it is, how the silly little bits feed in, that they want you to do like stupid little campaigns, but stupid in the best way, like fun, silly things that are vitally important, but also allow you to have fun with them as well. It's not all, we must be completely serious the entire time, which is the impression that I had. So, next step was then obviously hands on a starter set. So that is what we've got here. We've got the starter set. We've also got a Game Master's screen, and I am determined to attempt this with my D&D group on a night where we decide to do a one-shot instead. I'm going to attempt a Warhammer one instead. But let's see what's inside the starter set, what you get, what's exciting about it, and hopefully it'll give you an idea as to whether you should pick it up as well. One thing I am going to quickly note before I go any further is something that I really like about this, is that look, on the inside it's got all your cheats. So this is the inside of the box that just sits on the top of it, and instead of it being wasted space, we've got this. Presumably you can use it, in theory, to sit as your sort of DM screen to get you started. So although the GM screen that I'm talking about is separate, it is indeed this one. We'll have a look at that later. You do actually have enough to get you started. Okay, so I like this. As we come in straight away, we've got a read this first, which is very cool, and there's something in there as well. Oh, we've got dice. Okay, very nice. Now, I spied on the back that these are Q Workshop dice. I adore Q Workshop dice, just because they're usually pretty funky, and they tend to do themed dice, but really nicely themed dice, on a mixture of anything and everything. So I have llama dice from Q Workshop that I think are delightful. But let's see what's in here. So, prepare to enter a grim world of perilous adventure. Read this first. So, what have we got? So this is sort of like your introduction. So we're looking at what's in the box, sort of what to expect, and what you're going to see, what things are. So what do you need? How do you play? What is a GM? All of the above. And we've got some cool things to look at as well. We've got some maps in here. That's going to be fun. So we're working seemingly on a D100 system. I've not had a play with a D100 system. I'm mostly just D&D and then errant side ones. So this should be fun. And then we've got a stack of more fold-outs. So let's just have a quick look what these are. These appear to be our character sheets. That's very fun. And oh, seeing in the back, full art on the back. Nice. Okay, so this is what you're presented with. So you've got a little bit of discussion on the person that you're picking up. That's who they are and what they look like. So this is like your flavour text. This is what sort of character you're going to play and what they're like. And then all the details you need inside. I really like that. This feels quite premium. This is better than like just your normal white sheet of printed A4. We all know what I'm talking about. But So we've got a character sheet explanation, so perfect for first timers. I like this in a starter set. Character background, so things like motivations, ties, secrets, your initial wealth, and then your basic skills, so all of those out of 100. So what are we best at here? Endurance seems to be our best one, or lore. So endurance, lore and leadership are our sort of top 3, not in that order. We also have armour points as well. That's interesting. I wonder if you can then target where you hit, perhaps. So very much the same sort of thing with the others. So we've got Dwarf Slayer. We've got Halfling. And I know it's something that frustrates people when I say, but from my point of view, seeing sort of female options is quite nice. Ultimately, no matter who I pick, it won't make a difference because I'm role-playing anyway, but it is nice to see the logic there. So then we have the adventure book. This is a good size. This reminds me of the D&D size, and then just to show you that there is a table of references. So big old stack of contents, big old introduction, and then talking about sort of being a GM, but really it then just jumps right in to what you're expected to, like the sort of storylines in 6. So from market to market. Once everybody's settled and ready to play, read the following scene. That does make things easier. Okay, so then just explanation, so how combat works, for example, what the rounds do, how law and order is in this place. Very, very cool. And we've also got that thing that I really liked with the Enemy Within campaign that I found really interesting, is that sort of every NPC that they give you has information, has a table, has a backstory, has something that makes them feel quite fleshed out. So they become characters that you remember and come back. And it's sort of standard fantasy artwork, so it does look really nice, but it is sort of almost a level of expectation, especially from something like Warhammer. And then below, the guide to Ubersreich, I'm going to go with, I could be wrong. So presumably campaign book, source book is what I'm going with. So yes, interesting. So a visitor's guide is what they're offering, and it's telling you things about Blackrock Castle and Cordelia's Apothecary. So some of these, in some senses, I sometimes find things like this restrictive because there is law that you have to follow, and you have to remember as a GM what that law is to then be able to impart it to your players to then consistently remember it for the duration of your campaign. Slightly tricky. Same with things like this. So look, you've got this is your timeline, which all represent an incredibly deep world, but is kind of tricky to remember. But the thing to remember with that specifically is that it's your story. So if you use some of them but not others, fine. If you use every single one of them because that makes it easier and that gives you your world, perfect, great, wonderful. If you can only remember 3 of them and you make up the rest, as long as you remember what you've made up, you're probably going to be fine, let's be honest. It's a game at the end of the day. It's designed to be fun. So as for more bits, we have one token that's fallen out, but we have a nice stack of tokens there. Not sure as yet what those are for. Presumably it will be some kind of marker, but I don't know. If you're a player of this, by the way, please do let me know any tips in the comments. Let me know sort of what these tokens are likely for, whether you need them in the full game or whether they're like nice extras. And then we have some reference sheets. Nice. Most tests are simple tests. These tell you if you succeed or fail. Marvellous. And that's rolling at the D100. We've got an attributes and skills reference test. So similar sort of things to what I'm familiar with, so like agility, dexterity, intelligence, but there's also like weapon skill and things like that. We have let's take out a couple. We've got a combat reference sheet, an injury reference sheet, which is interesting. We might sort of record those differently to just HP. And then we have an introduction to Ubersreich and the Empire. So talking about the different things specifically. So these are kind of a good thing to keep behind your GM screen, or even share them with the group, to be honest, for a quick, I don't want to go through the whole thing, I don't want to go buy the core book, core handbook and sort of have to read through everything. I've got options to pick these up quickly. And then we have maps, which is really cool. I didn't fully appreciate until playing how great maps were for giving you an idea of your plans. I'm very sort of it's been very theatre of mind for me because most of my playing has been during lockdown. So it's based on what you can imagine as opposed to sets or opposed to having little miniatures or anything like that. But when we have used maps in Roll20, and we do each week, it makes things a great deal easier to sort of understand what the plan is, what's happening, and what we're trying to achieve. So, last few bits are handouts, and these are rumours. This was something I loved in the Enemy Within campaign that I read through. Obviously I haven't played through, so give me more info if you can. But these are basically one-sided, so a little bit different from the others. Is rumours, is you've heard this, and this might be a thing, and whether it becomes a thing depends on how your story goes or what happens, and where in the story that you are. But use these rumours to spark conversations with the players before making the rounds. So it's about is the Emperor ill, for example, or did he eat a dodgy eel, or things like that. I won't go into too many because if you want to play this, it's worth keeping them a secret. But it's just a nice little niggle, and I love the people that they start their games by saying, tell me 2 things that are true about your character and 1 that's a rumour, and then the rumour then follows them around for different things. I think that's a really cool way to play things. Anyway, final bits that's in here is sort of the recommendation for the next one. Continue your adventures with rough nights and hard days, which is shown here. And then it has to tell you that there are video games as well, because they do a lot. And finally, in the very bottom of this box, it almost feels like it should be textured because it looks like it's 4 maps settled together or folded, for example. But it's not. It's just a really cool bottom of the box, which is just pretty. I like how much thought goes into these. I've had a look at a couple of starter sets in the past, and the nicer they are, the more endeared you feel to give it a try. You really want to give it a go, because you feel like you have everything you need, but also that care and time has been put into this. They want you to play this, they want you to enjoy it, and that's really demonstrated in how nice the things are that they create for you to do so. Alright, the very last bit is the Game Master's screen. It's one of those things that will only take a second or so to take a look at, but it's just cool. So let's see what it looks like, what sort of art we're getting, and what sort of info we're getting too. Okay, so, interesting. Straight away, much more in here than I expected. What are you going to be telling me? What makes Warhammer create gripping and action-packed scenarios? Okay, that's cool. So it gives you a little bit more information, but a sort of more GM tips. So how to run a game, changing the status, making NPCs with characters. An appendix, I need a job. If your characters find themselves without a job or haven't planned an adventure, roll 3 D100 to quickly come up with a hook for who, what, why, and the adventure might happen. Wonderful. So, for example, 71 is a stuffy noble with an unwieldy powdered wig needs the characters to sour some of the medicine in the temple of Shala? Not sure. So that they can frame a rival organisation for a heinous crime is like an option. How do I know you again? Sometimes you just want to build a connection between NPCs in a single role, so that gives you more tables. These are just really helpful for the little bits that you don't think of. And I wasn't expecting that. I thought GM screen, they're going to give me a GM screen. That was the whole logic, not GM screen plus tips on how to play. Just very nice. Although to be fair, had I read the back, I would have known that it comes with GM specific advice on themes, techniques, and keeping players challenged and engaged. My bad. I was too excited to have a look at it, okay? Right, so standard 4 tier. And this is what we're looking at for what's in here. Plenty. So, roll for initiative. It's the wrong game. You know what I mean. Right, okay, so on the inside we have really cool stuff. So common names in the old world, that's really helpful for when you have NPCs sort of crop up suddenly that you've got to think about. All of your sort of lore-based stuff and your common checks as well. So sort of what you'd expect from a GM screen, yes, but nicely done. Weapons and shields are all in there. We've got resilience, fate, fortune, and resolve, how those work, but also where to find them in the handbook, which is ridiculously helpful. Obviously we don't have the handbook here because I have the starter set instead, but the sort of core role-playing rules and such can be picked up in your standard, this is your instructions, give it a go. This tells you exactly where to find it, so if you need a little bit more detail, you can refer back to it very, very quickly, which is very cool. So there you have it. This has been us taking a look at the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. It is published, I believe, by Cubicle 7. It's an officially licensed product, all the sorts of bits and bobs that you need to know. I will try and pop a link to this in the description so that you can check it out, and also sort of any other videos that you might be interested in. Be sure to like and subscribe, because if you subscribe you get to see all sorts of cool stuff like this sooner, but also if you could leave a comment and let me know what you think to this, what you think to sort of Warhammer roleplay. Have you played? What do you think? If you can offer me any advice in playing, I would love to hear that, and anything in here that you like or surprised you or might endear you to start playing the game as well, I want to hear all about it. Pop it in the comments, let's have a conversation, and I get to talk about games all the time, so win-win. With that, don't forget our magazine is up there. I will pop a link to our website so you can check that out if you fancy in the description, plus just some other cool stuff, so do go check it out. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.